Today's episode is a brand new episode with a brand new segment known as A Dad Talk. I'm Matt Howes, and this is Shits and Giggles, a podcast for dads. All right, welcome back there, winners, to another wonderful episode of Shits and Giggles, a podcast for dads. I have with me a very special guest today, Nate Timmons. Nate, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Well, Matt, thank you so much for having me. It's been, like a month that we've been in contact.
Yep, Pedro got us together over the Facebook.
Yeah.
How did you get in touch with Pedro?
So funny story, actually. So I'm from Western Michigan University. Mm-hmm. I graduated in 2018, so only a year and a half out of college, and a Western alum had actually started the Dads with Daughters Facebook group.
Oh yeah,
so
that's the and it blew up after that advertisement.
So Facebook then advertised it nationally, the group itself.
Yeah.
And it's since blown up. I think there's 70,000 members.
Oh, there's a lot because I got invited to join it. That's where I met Pedro. But shout out to Pedro, by the way.
Shout out Pedro, yeah.
And it's just, it's good. And I've said this about the group in particular. It is good. And then when it gets political, it gets nasty. But when people do talk about parenting, it's always good. Like I mentioned in a previous episode about how moms groups get very savage very quickly because they're very protective of how they parent. Dad's just like, fuck it. You want to teach a kid to shoot a gun? Go ahead. I don't care. Right? But okay. Anyway, so more about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm 24. I am not a dad myself. That's kind of my reasoning behind doing this.
Which again was very, very surprising that I learned that. Not surprising, but last night I was Googling you and I was like, oh, he's not a dad.
Yeah.
Cool.
No.
Fun fact.
From what I know, I'm not. So
right.
Fingers crossed. That's all good there.
We'll see.
Yeah, so 24 years old, and I'm currently on this 9-month, 13,000-mile trip to all 50 states to interview one dad from each state to write the dad book, 50 Dads, 50 States.
Awesome. So where are we at here in California, state-wise?
Yeah, so California is state number 30. So I'm 30 states in, and I've got 20 left to go.
Okay, all right. And when it comes to traveling, How are we expected to? Are you going to just strap Vanna to a raft and just kind of mosey on over to Hawaii, or are you going to just help them with that bridge project that they're planning on doing?
Oh, is that in the works? Yeah, so I'm traveling in a 1985 Volkswagen van again. It has had its fair share of issues along the way, but the number one question I'm always asked is, well, how are you getting the van to Hawaii?
Right.
Which is a very fair question. And when I had first started this adventure, when I first got my van, I had reached out to Volkswagen and said, hey, I'm taking your 30-year-old van to all 50 states. If you would be willing and able to help cover the cost of shipping it from LA to Honolulu and back,
Ooh. I
would drive from Seattle to Anchorage, because Alaska is the other one you have to take into consideration.
Right. Well, I figured you just drive through Canada, right?
Well, you want to say that's
think.
easy. You would think that's easy.
Yeah.
But from Seattle, no map does justice to how far and just how big this country actually is.
I did myself a cross-country road trip when my friend moved to California a year before I did, and it's like, oh, it takes 48 hours to drive across the country. And I'm like, oh yeah, if you don't stop. And it is, and then there's just the massive pockets of nothing. And like through Texas, going from handle to handle, it was just nothing.
No offense to Wyoming or Montana, but there is nothing there.
Right. Well, and you know what? That's what people go there for. Yep. They like to be far away from things.
Exactly.
But so how are we going to do Alaska?
So my buddy and I actually drove from Chicago through Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas, out west, and we made it to Seattle. And that was when I was kind of waiting for Volkswagen to get back to me, and they were kind of dragging their feet on it.
Oh, yeah. How did you get a hold? Like, did you just contact their customer service? Or
did you
just call up a dealership and like, hey.
Yeah, there's no 1-800 call Volkswagen right away.
Sponsor
number.
me.
Yeah. So I filled out their sponsor contact form they have on their, website, and of course it's, usually intended for these multi-billion, million-dollar companies.
Right. It's like, oh, I want to use your car in my commercial or something like that. I'm not saying it's a small project, but it's comparatively to what they probably usually do.
No, I'm completely okay with admitting that my project is quite small compared to the NFL or any of the big sponsors.
Oh yeah, the NFL, you say?
Yeah. I got in touch with somebody on their marketing team. We had talked through it. I kind of walked them through my project, and they said that was something they would potentially be interested in helping out. And they were kind of dragging their feet. And then my buddy and I got to Seattle, and we were like, we found this incredibly good deal on a plane ticket from Seattle to Anchorage. And we were both like, hey, we're here. This is about as close as we're ever going to get to Alaska. Like, you can't get much closer to Alaska than Seattle.
Right.
In the continental U.S.
Right.
So
you could go to Japan.
There are other ways. So we flew from Seattle to Anchorage and then came back. And admittedly, looking back, that was probably for the better, because it is a 40-hour drive from Seattle to Anchorage on nothing. Like, there is nothing on the British Columbia highway that leads you to Anchorage. And
it's not like just because in my head I've never driven that.
Okay.
I'm picturing just one road this way to Alaska. When you get to the end of Seattle, they're like, "Can I take your passport, and then you're up there, and then there you're back in Alaska.
So I did the Google Maps, and it was 40 hours just driving, and like you had mentioned, that's 40 hours without stops, without driving, and we were like, I've still got to get in Seattle. It would have been state number 28, and it was like I've still got 32 states to go. Mm-hmm. I could use this extra 1,500 miles to get me so much farther in the U.S. I'll just fly to Alaska, fly back. So realistically, that's what it's probably going to end up happening to get to Hawaii.
Right.
So,
but hey, you never know. They might put you on a boat. They have those, but that's a long endeavor as well, from what I'm told. I know it's 6 hours to fly. I doubt they're going to load your van onto a cargo plane, but you never know. They could be really. There's a lot of dads in there.
Hey, we want to try out this new helicopter delivery method.
Right.
We're just going to strap you up in this helicopter and see what happens.
Did we mention the name of the van?
If we didn't,
let's just go over that one more time, because it is fantastic.
Yeah. So my Volkswagen van is named Vanna White. Vanna White is in black letters across the front, so it is truly named Vanna White.
That's amazing. Every time you pull up, do you have a woman come out and just slowly turn the letters?
So that was the one thing. So when I first got the van, I had posted on social media on the Dad Books Facebook and Instagram and said, hey, like, I need help naming this van. With any Volkswagen car, it needs a name, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, help me name this van. I'm writing this dad book. Kind of keep that in mind. So I had all of my followers kind of submit their ideas, and then I had them vote on the top 8 names. Mm-hmm. And Dadillac was actually the original winner.
Oh, that's awesome. But it's not a Cadillac.
Well, it's not a Cadillac. It's not a Cadillac. And Dadillac just didn't have that one-line zinger to it,
True.
I had went to the mechanic in Kalamazoo, and he said, so what's up with this Dadillac? What does that mean? And I was like,
it's still good though.
all the names were
I literally
fantastic.
one of my segments that I'm gonna be getting advertisers, and it's going to be a dadvertisement, and I love my stupid puns that I make up for this show. I was telling someone, I'm like, I think I like the puns for the names more than I like the show itself. But can continue.
Dadvertisement is fantastic.
Yes.
So it originally was going to be Dadillac, and then I made the decision ultimately to change it to Vanna White. I just felt like that fit better.
And it's perfect.
It's perfect.
It's white. If you've seen it, if you haven't, go over to the Dad Book Facebook page. It is a white van. It is exactly. You picture in your head a Volkswagen van, and that is what you have. Vanna White.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes. So because I changed the name, I made the promise to my followers. I said I will do everything in my power to get on Wheel of Fortune if I change this name.
Yes.
So I am now working on my pitch.
Have you reached out to Pat Sajak?
So I'm actually working. I was actually working on it a couple nights ago. I'm working on the video submission for Wheel of Fortune, and I'm doing it up. It's going to be 3 minutes.
Well, this is the kind of stuff that they eat up too, because it's like they're always like, "Oh, well, so we know you like the show." It's like, "Oh, yes, well, I do." Let me tell you.
Yes.
That's crazy. What prompted this idea? What? So you're not a dad yourself,
correct?
So. Tell us a little bit about when you came up with the idea, how you've been kind of spinning it around. Like, was it always going to be 50 dads, 50 states? Did it start as something else and evolve? Where are we with this?
Yeah, no, fantastic question, and definitely the question that's asked the most, right? Is the inspiration point, and it really comes down to I say this jokingly, but it's the true and honest to goodness truth story behind it. It was my sophomore year of college, and my roommates and I were living in our apartment, and a week prior, our washer had broke. And I called my dad and said, hey, Dad, our washer broke. And he's like, oh, you just got to do this, this, this. And sure enough, it like that.
He knew what was wrong with it, and he knew how to fix it. He didn't even need to be there.
Exactly. He knew how to fix it. And a couple nights go by, and my roommates and I, as any good college roommates do, were running through the conspiracy theories, right? JFK, 9/11, the big ones.
Yeah.
And I had that flashback to my dad just knowing how to fix something. And I told him, I said, dude, like, there's got to be this book out there that when a dad has their first newborn child, the nurse comes into the delivery room and says, hey, follow me. I have to show you something. They walk you to this darkly lit room, flip on the light, and it's just bookshelves of just this book called the Dad Book. And it's advice from dads of all walks of life, what to do in this scenario, what to do in this scenario, how to handle this, how not to handle this. It's just it's like the Bible for dads, right?
Yeah.
But only dads know about it. That was the key, is that no moms are told about it, no kids are told about it, just dads.
A standard no girls allowed policy.
Exactly. And I've since learned and discovered that there's no book out there like that. And let me preface by saying to you, the Dad Book does not seek to be that book, because I truly believe there is no book and manual on how to be a dad.
I will jump in on that with you, because the reason I started this podcast specifically was I found out I was becoming a parent. It's something I've always wanted. And I'm like, okay, let me go find the books, and it's Mommy and Me and what to expect when you're expecting. And there was this dad book that had plaid on the cover. And I'm like, when it comes to dads, it's always plaid, it's military gear, it's you're a man. And I'm like, okay, I could use something for a little bit more of I have a beard. It's not a big beard, but I couldn't find any resources for dads, and accessible resources. Something that you can be like, it's relatable. It's not like a dictionary for dads. It's like, here's my experiences, here's what I'm doing, and if you want some of it, and that's why I started this show.
Absolutely.
So it's very interesting that there are other people out there who are like, there's a void that needs to be filled.
Yeah.
And this is a great way to do it. Something public, something accessible.
Yep. And that was exactly it too, because growing up in a small town, I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan. It's relatively small compared to, Chicago, Detroit.
I grew up in a very small town, yes.
Yeah. And coming from that small town, like you're in this community of people that you've grown up with your entire life, and you know nothing else, but there's a far bigger world out there, right? There's this country of 50 United States of dads of all walks of life, rich dad, poor dad, a single mom raising a family by herself, and how she's working to fill that void of not having a father figure for her children. There's truly these people of all walks of life, and I want to highlight that and bring it back onto this central idea of fatherhood, of how to be an influential father regardless of your situation. So we can dive into kind of some of the interviews too, to give an idea of like how I've been constructing the book. So the Dad Book itself is going to be broken into two chunks. There's going to be one chunk is 30 interviews with dads that have experienced a unique aspect of fatherhood.
Okay.
So that's going to be your single mom that's raising the family by herself. I interviewed a dad in Nebraska who spent 5 years in our prison system, and while he was in prison, he missed his daughter's quinceañera, and which is huge in the Hispanic community, and he missed it. And then a year later, a organization came to the prison and said, hey, we're looking to implement this father-daughter dance. Would you be interested in kind of being our guinea pig, if you will? And he said, yeah, like, you don't understand. I missed my daughter's quinceañera, and I want to give that back to her in some small way.
Right.
So sure enough, he was the guinea pig for this now national program where they go into prisons and correction facilities and do this father-daughter dance.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool just hearing these incredible stories of dads that, may be faced with more than your average stereotypical dad, or just dads that do maybe have a little bit more of like an average scenario where it's dad, mom, child, right? Where
right.
It's traditional, right? But even those dads have a story to share and a story to tell, and I want to highlight that you can be an average dad, you can be an exceptional dad, you can be a dad that hasn't been present in your child's life, but you still have a story to share, and you still have some kind of valuable input to then give to the wider community of fathers out there. So that's going to be one chunk of the book, and then the other 20 interviews are with dads, providing how-tos that I feel like every dad should know how to do. So how to cook the perfect steak,
right.
how to change a spare tire, how to set up the perfect tea party, kind of incorporating serious how-tos with kind of quirky how-tos. Putting all 50 chapters into this book, and then at the end of the book having a number of pages left blank titled What I Would Want to Tell You.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So, like, fill in your own story?
Fill in your own story. It's really up to the reader to decide how they use that space. If it's a dad, they can write
Like,
in
for their kid?
Yeah, they can write in, you're 3 years old and you just shit your pants all over the room, and I'm now, really struggling to really love you still and be like, hey,
that was when Penny was like fresh out the package. She was very fussy for a while, and it was all I could do was just I love you.
Yep.
But like she now has a chronicalization of her life that she will be able to happily know that plenty of people out there listen to
right.
on a regular basis.
Yeah, right.
So I can't wait to pull out the old tapes when her first boyfriend comes to the house. But no, that's a really neat idea. I like the idea of adding your own story.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets back to being accessible.
Exactly.
Like it's something that you get to interact with in some way and add to and be like, this is my own spin on where we were at.
Exactly. And my ultimate goal with the dad book, if it never becomes a New York Times bestseller, if it never sells, millions of copies, my ultimate goal is that at least one person picks it up, buys it, writes in their own advice at the end, hands it on to their child writes in their own advice, hands it on to their child. In theory, by the time you have a great-grandchild, they have 4 generations worth of stories, insight from a great-grandparent they may have never even met.
Yeah.
And that's if that happens at least once, then I'm happy.
And that is a good visual. Just I'm picturing the handoff,
Yeah.
and that I just think about that. That would be so cool. Imagine we had something like that from our parents, you know what I mean? And it's just like, so many people don't know great-grandparents, grandparents, and that kind of like a direct message,
Exactly.
That's super. With the book itself, how far are you just collecting data right now, or have you started writing or composing anything yet?
Yeah, so I've been writing the chapters kind of as I'm going along.
Okay.
So I've got most of the chapters pretty much wrote. I've not been editing anything. I'm just putting out everything I want.
Right.
And then after I'm all said and done, I'll start editing.
Do the big and then trim once you've gotten the full project done.
Exactly. It's easier to trim a lot than it is to
trim little by little.
Well,
and then also, your perspective about everything is going to change from number 1 to number 50.
It has. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been super interesting. Even the differences with the dad in California from a dad in Alabama or Mississippi.
Right.
Just the different viewpoints on life, right? And yeah, it's been super interesting, super just phenomenal experience, really. And my ultimate goal is to have the traveling done by my self-imposed deadline is by Christmas. I would love to be home by Christmas.
Right.
With the ultimate intent of having the book edited, published, ready to be read by Father's Day 2020. So.
Oh, that's excellent. For publishing, are you self-publishing, or are you in talks with publishers?
Yeah. So ideally, I'm going to get it through a big publisher. I'm more than okay with going through the self-publish route, but I would love to have an actual, big name publisher kind of backing the book, promoting it, marketing it. Unfortunately, I haven't been in talks with any of them yet, but I've also kind of kept that intentional because I don't want to have a publisher and be on their timeline.
That is a very, especially if this is this your first project?
First project.
So you're not going to have the leniency of, let's say, like Howard Stern, who just wrote his new book and he went 2 years past the deadline. You're going to be on I guess we're not publishing your book.
Right. No, yeah, exactly. And I love Vanna White, don't get me wrong, I love her to death, but I also know that she is prone to breakdowns, and I don't want to be getting this publisher and
she's an old soul.
She's an old soul, an old caring soul. I don't want to have a publisher and then have the van break down, and then that continuously push me back from getting the book published. So once I'm done with the journey, once I'm done with the collecting of these interviews, then that's going to be when I start reaching out to the publisher and starting that route.
It's a lot easier to reach out to a publisher when you have product. It's the same as when you're people out here in LA, everyone's got a movie, everybody's got a TV show. It's a lot easier to sell something that's finished than something that needs to be financed.
Exactly.
You brought up the various problems, or how Vanna's potentially not long for this world. Though those things do last forever. You could just replace every part and it'll go on forever. Why don't you mention a couple of the things that have happened to you along the way?
Yeah. So I started this trip back in April 14th of 2019. So I've been on the road for like 200 days. And you were talking about the barren land, the barren expanse that is Texas, Wyoming, Montana, these large just masses of land that have nothing. and I was driving through Wyoming, and I was driving and noticed that my van kind of started to lose power, which isn't unusual for my, van that has 90 horsepower, which is quite small for any car.
Just anything in
Anything,
general.
yeah. And I was going uphill.
It's like an outboard motor for a like small boat.
Right. No, yeah, it's literally like a souped up tractor engine. Like it's ridiculous. But I was going uphill and noticed I was losing power, and I was like, all right, this isn't unusual. But then when I was going downhill, I was going 55 miles per hour, then 45, then 30. And
you were decelerating downhill.
I was decelerating downhill, and I'm no rocket scientist, but that's usually not a good sign.
It's also like hard to do.
Yeah, no, I was literally sitting there like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So I threw it into neutral, pulled over, let the van cool off. Didn't really, and again, like I had no mechanical car knowledge before.
Right.
And I've just exponentially learned through this van, through it breaking down. So we let it cool off for like 30 minutes, started right back up, drove it another hour and a half with no issues, and the same thing happened. So it ended up breaking down 4 times between Wyoming and Billings, Montana. Mm-hmm. And that was the problem, is I had to get to Billings because there was a Volkswagen mechanic there.
And there's nothing there. There's nothing there.
There's nothing. I was stranded in a Walmart parking lot for 4 days in Billings waiting.
I read that on your page. I was like, oh, at least you have your bed with you.
at least I have all of life's necessities in my van, but there is nothing worse than being stranded in a Walmart parking lot.
Well, that's one of the few places that like truckers and like campers are allowed to park there. So at least you weren't in violation of any tickets or anything like that.
Right. So it ended up being the fuel pump. So it was the same fuel pump that was on the van when it rolled off the lot in '85.
Okay, so it did its job.
And the mechanic said it's done 35 years of good service, but it's time for a new one.
Yep.
So I got the new pump, put it on. Thank goodness for YouTube. There's a YouTube video out there for that.
And you know what? Just on a side note, I have learned so much. I've fixed so many things on my car. It's not an older car, but it's a piece of shit. Yeah. And I have learned how to replace the door handle broke. All kinds of little things. And it's like, oh, take it to the mechanic. I'm like, no, I got this. I got this.
Right. Yeah. So quite an interesting story with that. So that was the fuel pump was bad in Montana. Drove it out to Idaho, and then it died 2 other times on the way to Idaho. So then I swapped out the fuel filter, and then it made it all the way to Seattle and Portland with no issues. And then as I was driving down the California coast, I was driving and had the same issue where I was decelerating going downhill. And I was like, shoot, the fuel pump again. Like, you got to be kidding me. So I spent an hour looking over everything, only to realize that one hose that, I kid you not, was maybe 2 inches long had just become dislodged. Mm-hmm. And just needed to be put back on.
Just a nice little slide it on.
Slid it right on, and it started right up. I was like, you have got to be fucking kidding me.
It's always oh, we don't swear on this podcast.
Oh, sorry.
It's called Shits and Giggles. Of course we swear on this podcast. It's my favorite little thing. I'm like, oh, wait till he swears. I'm going to do it. That's my joke.
Yeah, right.
It's a dad joke. I don't know. It's what you do. It's always something small, and when it's something super fixable, it's even more irritating because you're like, this isn't even it's not even broken. It's
knock on wood, I wanted it to be something broken just so I could be like more pissed off, but yeah, I was literally like, you got to be fucking kidding me, like this little hose. So then I made it to San Francisco, drove through a wildfire on basically empty to get there, but I had to because
not a great place to stop.
Not a great place to stop. Yeah, exactly.
So you were telling me this a little bit earlier. You were literally driving through the wildfire. Like, how close were you to the, like, was it like stopping for burning tumbleweeds across the road?
Well, so I was driving through all these northern California states while they were shutting off the power. And I thought that meant, they'll still keep the gas stations open. But no, the gas stations are closed.
That's one. So these wildfires that we are plagued with in California, and they'll cut the power. And my brother-in-law had his power cut. And so to keep your home lit for the most part, you are now lighting candles. Right. And it's a very backwards way to handle a problem. It's fires fighting fires, essentially. But it is, for anyone out there who doesn't realize, because I'm sure everyone's seeing on the news, because I'm getting some friends from back in New England that are texting me, but I don't think the gravity hits a lot of people with these fires. These are not just pesky nuisances. Like last year, an entire city burned to the ground. Not a town, but like the entire town. You think of like, a couple of buildings. No, the town. So, and then, sometimes they'll close roads, but I mean, there's only so much they can do, and they can't police some of these things either because there's not enough resources. So that's crazy that you were there. So I'm sorry, how close were the fires?
No, yeah. So I was driving down Highway 101 to San Francisco, and I was 20 miles away from Santa Rosa, and I needed to get to Santa Rosa to fill up my gas because they were the only town that still had power. So I was driving down 101, and sure enough, the highway, they had shut down 20 miles before where I needed to get to. So I pull off, and they've got, National Guard Humvees and police guards at the exit saying, hey, this town's been evacuated. Like, you need to head north. And I told them, I said, I'm basically on E in my 85 Vanagon. Like, I need to get to this town so I can fill up. And they were like, yeah, sorry, you have to drive an hour and a half north to then find the correct route to get to Santa Rosa.
What to what end on the gas? Like, hey, guy, can I just get? I know that your Humvee has some extra gas. Could I borrow like a little gallon? Maybe.
I was ready to sign a waiver release form, being like,
just let me drive.
I am driving under my own free will. So I drove like 5 miles north, pulled off to another city, and found a police officer that said, hey, like, I know you need to get to this city. If you want to make it happen, here's the back roads you need to take.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was like, dude, my man, basically giving me the, here's your free will, signing away. Like, if
like
you take this,
you're going to be in trouble,
yeah,
potentially, but I see you're not wanting to drive an hour and a half out of your way.
Exactly. So I drove through these back roads, through the vineyards of Northern California, absolutely beautiful. But then by the time I got to where the highway had been cut off, or like within basically the same area, that's when the clouds and the sky started to turn pitch black. And it looked like nighttime at maybe 4:30, 4:45 in the afternoon.
Oh, and it's like it'll get orange too, and it looks like hell on earth.
That's literally how I describe it. Like, it was hell on earth. There was orange in the distance all around. There was tumbleweeds. The wind was picking up. There was tumbleweeds and ashes being thrown across the road. And this guy behind me, I had the Real Dad Books Facebook and Instagram handle on the back.
Yeah.
And this guy behind me messages me on
Seriously?
Instagram and says, hey man, my wife and I are following behind you. We have no idea where we're going. We hope you're going the right way. And I'm sitting there just cracking up as I'm white knuckling because I'm like, man, I have to make it to Santa Rosa. And yeah, sure enough, like, could see the fire coming over the mountaintop, and just the most bizarre, like, scariest thing in my life, but also
it's thrilling. And it's something. I hate to say stuff like that because I get like an adrenaline rush when it's like stormy, heavy rains, like when there's some sort of impending doom. But like it is, look, let's all be honest. Everybody gets it. It's horrible what's happening, but everyone has that sick part that they're like, it's kind of awesome at the same time. Not, I don't want anyone to lose their lives. I don't want anyone hurt. But
absolutely.
You're think about just picturing a massive fire just crawling its way across the states, and you're like, that is just crazy that this is. And it's natural for the most part. I mean, a lot of them are started by the Transformers out here. Someone flicks a cigarette, but some can just start. The wildfires do just happen sometimes. Yeah. And there's a picture there's a fire season in California. That's it, just like any other kind of season. It's the rainy season. It's the flaming season.
Right.
And so it is nuts. I can't believe that I'm just happy they allowed you to kind of go through that spot, because I remember, I think it was around then that I had checked in with you as to where you were, and I was like, just be careful because they're shutting down like the state.
I think your exact message was, just be careful.
Yeah. And because I was just like, hey, don't drive through a fire to get to this interview. It's not that necessary. You can come at another time. But the whole journey. Besides that, did you hit any other strange weather or?
Well, so admittedly, I when I was planning this entire 50-state route, I had planned it so that I was going to leave in October of 2018. I had planned it so I would head south to Florida first and then head west during the winter. So I'd be south during the winter and then head through the northern states during the summer. My 30-year-old van had other ideas for me and said, you're not going to leave until April. But I had already lined up all the interviews heading south. And I was like, all right, F it. Like, I've already got these interviews lined up. I don't want to call these dads and say, hey, I just started, but I'm going to be 6 months from getting to you. Like,
right.
I'm going the other way.
Yeah, you got it all set up,
yeah. So I drove south to Florida in April. So by the time I got to Florida, it would have been May. And then by the time I was in New Orleans, it was actually July, because I had spent a month with my sister down in Alabama. And so I'm in the middle of New Orleans in the middle of July, which is the worst time to be in the South.
Oh, I know.
Living in a van with no AC.
I was about to say, they don't have AC,
My
right?
van does not have AC. So I joke that I I joke, but it's serious, that I had actually lost 35 pounds
just from water.
Just from being like in the South during the heat of summer. But
that sounds like a nightmare. Like, I'm sitting in this air conditioned apartment right now and I'm still a little sweaty. I just run hot.
Yeah.
But that just is my nightmare.
Yeah. So for any dads listening, if you are trying all these keto diets and seeing poor results, I would suggest buying an old van with no AC and living out of it for a month in the South. That'll do
it.
You'll shed the pounds.
That's get rid of the dad bod.
Right.
This is some more advice that you can give our listeners.
Yeah.
How, if you don't mind me asking, how are you financing your trip?
Yeah, so
because it's a lot. You can't be at a 9 to 5
right.
and then coming back and going across the country. So.
Exactly. So there's this Reddit thread that I follow that's called Beer Money.
That's my dog clicking around for everyone who cares to know. She's being a little obnoxious right now.
Completely
Sorry,
good.
Go on.
You're good. So there's this Reddit thread called Beer Money, and it's the whole idea is how to make a couple $100 extra every couple weeks so that you can afford beer, groceries, rent, whatever it is you.
Oh, that's
decide.
kind of neat.
So it's this collection of just thousands of van lifers, of people that don't want to work a 9 to 5, kind of giving their ideas on how to make money online. So one of the big things I've been doing is called user testing. And all it is companies will send out their prototype websites and they just ask for feedback on those websites. And then they'll pay you to sit there for 15 to 30 minutes kind of dorking around with their website, giving them pointers, giving them their ideas. So that's been one way. And then another way is through online focus groups. So as opposed to like going into an Apple headquarter and sitting down for 3 hours with the prototype iPhone, it's all through webcam. And
right.
It's companies saying, hey, we're going to test out this new thing. What would you expect it to be able to do? What wouldn't you expect it to be able to do? So that's been the two big ways I've been financing this, which is totally ridiculous that I can,
That is nuts to me. And I'm like, do you have an apartment back home, or
Nope.
right now? Did you have one before you started this?
Nope. So I moved back in with my parents after college because I knew I was going to be doing this road trip and I wanted to save money.
Oh, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
First off, it is impossible for people to afford to live in this country. And just in general, like. I don't shame anyone who needs to stay and like save money with their. We almost moved in with my wife's parents before we had a kid just to be like, let's save money.
Yeah,
it's so ridiculous. And this is in Southern California.
Yeah,
I am broke and we make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Not really broke, but like it's ridiculous. So good on you.
Yeah, no, and God bless my parents too for being like, yeah, our son just graduated from college, is moving back in with us, is going to go live out of a van. Like, I'm sure their friends were probably like,
it's not exactly
what the hell is going on with Nate? Like,
that's not exactly what the parents and it's not bad because of what you're actually doing.
Right.
But the phrasing, it's like, like, I'm going to be a janitor. I'm like, that's an amazing job, great benefits, but I'm a janitor, and that's not, it's just something that people don't expect people to be excited about.
Right.
But that's an amazing. Just the way that you're putting all this together, everything's kind of falling into place is really, it blows my mind. And you're resolved to continue to do it because I could see after 2 or 3 states just how exhausting. I drive in my job fairly a lot, pretty much, a few hours, 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. And I got used to that eventually, but it's tiring to drive all day, and you don't have a co-pilot. You're not having somebody who's riding around next to you so you can take a nap in the back.
Right.
When we did our cross country, my buddy Luke we switched off. That made it somewhat easier.
Yep.
But that's just crazy.
Yeah. So my van also has no radio. So
what?
I have my windows rolled down for my AC,
you just
and
get
then
your phone going?
I have my speaker, and that's actually usually my.
Oh, so it doesn't even have speakers. You just literally.
I have a portable speaker, and that's basically kind of my signal to myself of when that dies is like a good stopping point for me for driving.
Yeah. We all need to recharge.
Right.
What do you do? So you've been on this trip for a couple 100 days now.
Yep.
What do you do? Like when you're not interviewing someone, you're on the road, you just pull over. What's your entertainment? What's the kind of thing that keeps you going?
Yeah. So I actually have a Planet Fitness membership. I
love that because they're national.
Because they're national, and with the Black Card, you can go to any location throughout the U.S. and they're for the most part all 24/7. So that way, I'm able to park in their parking lots overnight, work out, shower in the morning,
there,
and then kind of go to the next state. So it's really been a combination of working out, reading, constantly kind of revamping, again, the chapters of the actual book.
Yep.
So a lot of reading, a lot of writing. doing the website testing to make money for the next week's budget, basically. And then really, if it's a bigger city like San Francisco or LA, spend the day walking around, going to all the sites, going to all the the tourist spots.
Have you been disappointed by Hollywood yet?
So I haven't made it to Hollywood yet. I'm heading that way next. I've been told to be expect nothing.
The Hollywood, and I'll tell this to everyone who wants to listen. And it's look, I'm not trying to burst anybody's bubble here. I was so excited to go see Hollywood when I first came down here. The Hollywood people think is Hollywood is really Burbank.
Right.
That's the studio, like Studio City. It's like sunny, it's bright. You can see the WB lots over there, like all these lots. Hollywood, and if I may say, is a shithole. The Walk of Fame is disgusting. It's a sight to see. It's homeless for days. There's corners of the street that are just black. And you're like, why are they dirty? What are they dirty with? There is, and I will tell you, this is no joke. There was one man cleans the stars. He is a man with no legs, and he crawls from star to star and toothbrush cleans every star.
Seriously.
This is a true story. So I've never seen him, but I've been told about this man. It's like a legend, in my opinion.
Okay.
But that being said, it is something you need to see for sure.
Right.
But I always tell people to manage their expectations.
Okay.
Because if you go to Burbank has like the studios. You can see all the domes. You got the water tower. There are some studios around the Hollywood area, but they have like high walls. You can't see anything. They don't look like it. They look like industrial parks. So, what people tend to think Hollywood is really Burbank for the most part. And it's like, I don't know. It's just, I worked in Hollywood for a couple of years, and it was just like somehow darker.
Right.
Just somehow dark. And I'm like, why? Well,
Yeah.
it's like you get off the train, you're like, oh, it's a little bit darker in Hollywood. But... So yeah, that's cool. Any notable things that you've seen on your journey so far?
Well, admittedly, I don't mean to get sappy or anything, but the one thing I've seen is just the overall good in humanity.
Yeah.
We live in a world today that you see on the news that we're constantly trying to be divided, and you hear that people are bad and the world's coming to an end. But with me being on this journey, for instance, I was in Orlando, Florida, and I was at a Starbucks coffee shop charging my phone, and a guy kind of my age came in and was looking for a charger, and I said, hey, man, feel free to use mine. He was from Albania. He was working in Disney or working at Universal Studios, and within the first 3 minutes of us talking, he said, well, what are you doing in downtown Orlando? Everybody comes here to go to the amusement parks. And I said, oh, I'm actually looking for tickets to go.
Yep.
I'm actually online right now looking at, buying one. He said, oh, dude, I've got you. I got two day tickets for you.
Oh, wow.
It's on me. And that's one scenario. I'm trying to think
that phone
of,
charger paid for itself.
right? And then just me being in random parking lots and people coming up and saying, hey, what's this dad book? What is it you're doing?
And that it's your branding on your car is amazing. It's definitely something that's conversation worthy.
Right.
So that was a smart plan.
It was the catch-22 of buying a van notoriously unreliable.
Did you? Sorry, I saw on Halloween. Did you actually get asked to leave neighborhoods because you did free candy?
So for those of you listening, on Halloween, I put a picture online of me with my pants rolled way too high, floodwater, if you will, and then I had a cardboard sign with free candy on the side of my white van. And I was holding candy in the picture, and the caption I think went something along the lines of, Vanna and I were hoping to pass out candy, but we've been asked to leave 6 neighborhoods already. Yeah. I received a couple phone calls from friends, and they were like, Nate, what are you losing your mind? What's going on? Why?
I was like, you might not make it.
No.
This is the thing that you do. You joke in the wrong city.
Right. I can confirm I took that picture in a Planet Fitness parking lot and had not been asked to leave any neighborhood. So
awesome.
I did quickly take the cardboard sign down. Once I was done with the picture, I was like, I need to quickly remove this so nobody actually does call, the police and ask me to leave. So
for sure. Yeah. And it's like, someone, especially, and there is the good in human. And I'm with you on that. I feel like a lot of the stuff that we see is the minority of the stuff.
0.001%.
And it's the sensationalism that people are throwing out. One, here's this, here's that, here's 40 different takes on the same thing that makes people think it's... Because there are some really great people out there. I've gotten people who've reached out to me for the show who are just wonderful people in general. And it's so sad that we have, as a people, we have to focus on the bad stuff, you know.
Right.
But there's a Pawtucket Patty, the chick who called on the people who were barbecuing. It was that lady with the glasses that called because people like, there's always someone who's going to call on you, and the problem is with the good there is the people who are, and sometimes they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. What is it? Some people just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
You know. But what else? Is there anything else about the journey, or any specific interactions and interviews you've had that have just blown your mind?
Admittedly, so kind of going back to being in a Planet Fitness parking lot and somebody coming up, when I was in South Carolina, I had been planning to interview a mechanic, and I had this woman walk up to the van, and she said, "Hey, do you mind if I take a picture of your Volkswagen van and send it to my son? We've always loved the idea of having a van." And I was like, "Yeah, like absolutely, feel free." So then we started a conversation. He said, "So what's this dad book all about? What is it?" So I was telling her, and she said, "Oh, well, that's phenomenal. I'm a single mom myself. My children call me Dad, Mom, and for Father's Day every year they give me Father's Day gifts." And I looked at her, I said, "Dawn, I've been looking for you."
I was like, "You didn't know this. I didn't know this either, but you're the one I've been searching for."
You're the one I've been searching. Yeah, exactly. So the next night we were in an Applebee's, and we spent 3 hours talking about kind of her experience as a single mom raising 3 children. And unfortunately, there is the sad reality that for a lot of single mom households, children aren't expected to really become much. And she actually had her superintendent. So she had her first daughter when she was just leaving high school. And her superintendent, when she was leaving high school, said, "Dawn, I'm so disappointed. You're not going to amount to anything. You're this, single mom in a high school setting." And then 18 years later, when her daughter graduated from the same high school, she went up to the superintendent and said, "Hey, I just want you to meet my daughter. She's the same daughter I had when I was leaving your high school."
Is the same guy?
Same guy. Same person. Yeah. Same superintendent. And she said, "I just want you to know, like, this is my daughter. She's now, going to higher education," and kind of put it to her.
And that burns me because, my parents got divorced when I was a kid. My mom took care of us. My dad was there. He wasn't, but, he was a weekend warrior.
Yeah.
But, like, people who shit on single parents,
right.
I even say it, I'm like, obviously there's a dad podcast, and I'm like, there's a lot of shitty dads out there, and there's a lot of shitty moms out there. I'm like, but if you take your time, if you say nothing is raising a child,
right.
you're out of your fucking mind. Like,
right.
I'm sorry that I didn't get a job at a Fortune 500 company, but the kids I'm raising are going to be phenomenal.
Right.
And that's proof unto itself.
Right.
So that's crazy. I'm glad you did that, because that's awesome stuff.
No, it literally, like, it was one of those when she said, my children give me Father's Day gifts. As I'm sitting in the van, I'm like, wow, this is going to be perfect for the chapter.
Yeah.
But then when we really started unpacking her story, that's when I was like, Dawn, I don't know what to say. Like, I had one idea of how this interview would go, but just hearing all the stuff you just shared with me, like, this is gonna be awesome to share.
And it's so real.
Right.
Yeah, the humanity in it is harder to if you just it's single mom. Oh, it's a single, and there's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of stigma out there, and it's just like to get someone's actual story, because sometimes you just stop at single mom. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited when that I'll be excited to read that chapter for sure.
Yeah.
And so you've done that. So you said 30 states.
So I've been to 30 states. Unfortunately, there have been a couple states that it just didn't work out timing-wise to do the interview in person.
Okay.
So we've since done the interviews through phone or Skype.
Okay.
So we're getting the interviews still done. But yeah, 30 states in, 20 more states, 20 more chapters to go. So
awesome. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
Well, I'll just throw it out there for anybody listening. If you want to follow along, again, I've got 20 states left. So perfect time to kind of, if you're looking for something to read up on or follow. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. It's at The Real Dad Book. And then I've also got a website, therealdadbook.com. And that's kind of how you can stay in touch, stay updated.
And we'll share it on the page as well.
Yeah, and I always say, if you know a dad, so to kind of finish up my route, I'm going to be going to the southwestern states next, and then I'll be finishing up in the Northeast. And the Northeast is actually where I'm still looking for a lot of dads to interview. Mm-hmm. So if you know a dad, if you are a dad that has an exceptional story that you think should be shared to the masses, to the dad community. Feel free to reach out. You can shoot me an email at Nate, Nate, at therealdadbook.com, and we can get connected that way. And I would find it really awesome. Everybody always asks, how do you get connected with dads? And I found it really cool, all the ways I've connected with dads. And I would love to say, yeah, we met through Shits and Giggle podcast.
That would be great. Yeah. I'm like, that would be great for me as well, by the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So yeah, we got Nate Timmons. It's the Dad Book. And what is the Dad Book? 50 states? What's the full title?
So it's the Dad Book, 50 Dads, 50 States.
Okay. And we're looking at spring 2020.
Yep, June 2020.
Okay, awesome. Well, Nate, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah,
you know, we'll have this. I release them on Tuesdays.
Okay.
So this will go up in a couple of days. I don't even think I need to edit this. First, I'm gonna add one segment at the end, just talking about my daughter, like I always do.
Absolutely.
But you don't need to be here for that. But so we'll move on to the penny development section soon. But Nate, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope you have. I wish you great luck with the journey and with your van as well.
Yeah.
So
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and everybody feel free to reach out. If you need any information and you didn't listen to the last 5 minutes of the show, you can reach out to me as well. But yeah, so Nate, we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
We'll check in also.
Yeah.
We'll try. Well, maybe we'll get a phone call going when you get closer to
awesome.
to the book, because I got the phone set up for this thing too. But yeah, all right. So we'll talk to you later.
Awesome.
Well, that was a hoot. Boy, howdy! That I am very interested to get that book. I'll tell you guys. I guess I just wanted to wrap up with, where is my penny at develop penny development penny development. Where is my penny at developmentally? A whole lot to say. We did do Halloween with her. That was great. She was very fussy the whole time. She's been a lot of fuss happening with her lately. It is what it is, but we went out to dinner and she was it started bad at dinner, and then we walked around at a trunk or treat, and that was actually pretty fun. A bunch of cars do it, so you're not walking around the neighborhood. It's kind of like a block party, but she wasn't having it. And then after one bottle and her spitting up all over me, we went home. And as far as Halloween's goes, her first will be one I will regale her with for a long time to come. But she was a pineapple. She was adorable, and pretty much just wanted to go over that. She was constipated this week. That was fun, but let me just say, she's no longer constipated. She is not in danger of constipation, so don't worry about it. That's about that for Penny Development. Guys, thank you so much for hanging. I know it's a long episode. I think that interview was phenomenal. Nate Timmons, the Dad Book. It's going to be great. I'm for sure going to call him. I'll have him on there again. I apologize if his microphone was a little lower. There was a technical issue, but you can hear it pretty good. Just ignore I'm a naturally loud person. Seriously though, that was fun. I hope you all enjoyed that. And I guess to wrap it up here, I'll leave you, as I do every week, with my world famous words of wisdom. My kid is better than your kid, and vaccinate your kids or keep them the hell away from mine. I'm Matt Howes, and this has been Shits and Giggles, a podcast for dads. You've just listened to one dad's perspective on parenting. This show is not meant to be an authority on how you should raise your kids. Did you enjoy the show? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on social media. Leave a review. Anywhere that you can find and download podcasts, you can find Shits and Giggles. Find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at shitsandgigs42 with 2 G's. Email us at shitsandgigs42@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube as well by searching for Shits and Giggles, a podcast for dads. Don't forget, you can also call the hotline to leave a quick story about you as a parent at 818-835-2350. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.